let's solve this given function and graph it. In order to do that, I notice that I have sine involved here. That means we're going to have some kind of wave going on. So we're going to take the original y equals sine of x, and we're going to recognize that it's on an interval of 0 to 2 pi, which makes sense, right? We go completely around the unit circle. In order to figure out what happens to this one, we need to know the formula for all the parts involved. And we'll talk about those here in just a second. All right, so as you notice that we have a sine times b times the x minus c plus d. Well, a is going to be my amplitude. Amplitude is going to tell me if we're going to have a reflection about the y or the x-axis or not. In this case here, we always take the absolute value, and it's already positive. So that worked out great. So let's look at the graph, and let's look at its original here that we've plotted first, and then we'll go further. So if you notice this dotted line right here is really small, that's our original sine wave. And since the amplitude is 5 and its original was greater than 0, we have no reflection about the x-axis, so we're not going to flip this. We're not going to go like this, okay? So there's no reflection about the x-axis. So now let's solve for the next part. Oh, and also, while we're talking about this, we know that there's no reflection about the x-axis, but we do know that we're going from from 5 here to 5. So this is going to happen, and it's going to be 5. Does that make sense? So my y values there are going to be 5. All right. So now let's talk about our b. B here is 4, and b is going to be plugged into the formula that's going to solve for the period. So we got 2 pi over b. And when I plug in 4 for b, I can reduce this and I get pi halves. So that is my period. That means that I have this period. Let me show you real quick. If you notice, let me change this right quick. We have this right here. This one part happens, and it happens at 2 pi. Okay, so then if we was to regraph this again, we have 2 pi. And it's going to happen in a phase shift. And let's solve for the phase shift so we can know which, the complete process will happen. All right. So we come back up here and we see that C is going to be my phase shift. And what is C? It is pi force. And how do I know it's positive? Because this formula is written like this, the original. However, if what you got working with is written like this, then that means we need to rewrite it as this, and then that would have made C negative, okay? Because we know negative times negative is positive. So watch for that. So now we know that we have a phase shift of 4 pi, pi force. Don't know why I do that. Okay, so what does that tell me? That means we're not moving this direction. Since it's positive, we're going to be moving to the right. However, if my C was negative, we're going to shift it to the left. So this is telling me that we're going to just continue. Okay. Now we have D. D tells me my vertical shift. And it's positive 2. And it just says we're going to move up vertically 2. So we'll move our function and we move it up. And that is graphing and sketching and determining what each part is of this particular function.